Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Davenport, Dean of Rockefeller Chapel. Class of 2017, this splendid day has arrived when you take your place as students at the University of Chicago. Today, you join generations of scholars whose unquenchable thirst for knowledge has enriched all life. May your own quest for new understanding, new knowledge, be likewise shaped by a sense of limitless horizon and of the depths of possibility within you, within your own bodies and minds and spirits. Families, as you leave your students here this day, may your care continue to nourish them as they begin this new journey as scholars in this great place of learning, a journey that will set them each on their own life's course to fulfill their destiny, their promise, their purpose. And know that each of us here will do all in our power to help them flourish, to make them wise. And now, with great pleasure, I introduce someone who plays a key role in ensuring student well-being and success. Karen Warren Coleman, Vice President for Campus Life and Student Services. Karen.
Good afternoon. It is absolutely thrilling to stand before you this afternoon to welcome you and add my warm regards to the class of 2017 and our incoming transfer students. Thousands and thousands of high school students from around the world wanted to join us here at the University of Chicago this fall, and we wanted you, the most interesting and accomplished students among them. As new students at the university, you're joining one of the great communities of scholars and embarking on an exciting experience that will challenge and change you. All of us are here to help build a sense of community, to provide opportunities and experiences for you to grow personally and professionally, and to create a place that you can call home now and throughout your life. Whether in your house lounge, a dining hall, a campus cafe, or while participating in a registered student organization, playing intramurals, participating in the remarkable number of community events that you will experience during your time here, the University of Chicago will empower you to experience the depth of your intellectual curiosity and the breadth of your humanity. The questions you will learn to ask, the knowledge you will come to master, and the connections between what you learn inside the classroom and what you experience outside of it will serve you well. In addition to your faculty members, your classmates will be among the most interesting people you will come to know. Like you, they bring to our campus a diversity of experiences and beliefs, and we deliberately bring together rich and varied viewpoints and support the free and open exchange of ideas. It is our greatest honor to welcome you and embrace the beginning of your journey. I'd also like to thank the parents and families of our incoming students. We look forward to partnering with you to support the growth of your daughter or son on what will undoubtedly be an incredible intellectual and personal journey. Also, it is my hope that this will be the beginning of a lifelong relationship between yourself and the University of Chicago. To our incoming students, my advice is to get to know your faculty members, join a student organization, compete in intramurals, cheer on the Chicago Maroons, challenge yourself, and above all, have fun. Welcome to the University of Chicago. Now I'd like to introduce our alumni speaker, Angela Pace-Moody, a 1997 graduate of the college who will begin to show you just how vital a role our alumni play in the life of our community and in the lives of our students. Angela.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Pace-Moody, and I'm an alumna of the class of 1997. I am truly honored and humbled to share this momentous occasion with you all. I am pleased to extend an official welcome on behalf of the Alumni Association of the University of Chicago. As the class of 2017, you join a growing community of more than 350,000 alumni, faculty, students, staff, and parents that will be involved in helping to enrich your academic experience. We care about each of you, and we care about your success over the next 4 years and beyond. We are confident that your University of Chicago education will provide you limitless advantages and opportunities. Additionally, I'm very delighted to announce that my class, the class of 1997, is adopting your class, the class of 2017. We will be present over the next 4 years, and we are, in fact, 20 strong on a daily basis on campus, working as staff and faculty here for you. We proudly look forward to your graduation in 2017, when we'll celebrate our 20th class reunion. At this time, I would like to present Lexi and Leo on behalf of the Alumni Association with your class banner.
Welcome, students and families. I did tell you that it would all work out, and now here you are. Congratulations, and get excited for an incredible 4 years. Yeah, you should get excited here. All right. Now, I know I may have said something like this in the past, but I really mean it this time. You are the best class I have ever admitted. If you have older siblings, do not tell them I said that here at the school. Given your past accomplishments and future aspirations, I am certain that you will make incredible contributions here on our campus and very soon to the world. President Zimmer, as the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, I am pleased and proud to formally present to you, Dean Boyer, and the faculty, the class of 2017.
So good afternoon. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you, the University of Chicago College Class of 2017, and our new transfer students to the University of Chicago. And it's likewise a great pleasure to welcome those parents and grandparents and younger siblings of our new students who are in attendance today, for you are also joining the University of Chicago community. The University of Chicago is a very distinctive institution with a history of remarkable achievement and a very particular view and a particular commitment to education and research. This fall marks 36 years since I first arrived on the University of Chicago campus as a junior faculty member in the mathematics department. Most of us who have spent many years here believe there is no place that's more exciting, more challenging, or more enriching, and no university that plays a more important role in the landscape of American higher education, or indeed education worldwide, than this university. I'd like to say a few words about why I believe that to be the case and what this will mean for your particular experience here as students in the college. And I'd like to also say a few words about why we believe that you who are about to enter the college are just the right students to be here, and the important role that you will play inside this very rich community. So the University of Chicago is an institution that has been driven from its inception by an idea. And this is the idea that one could create and continuously renew a university that was focused on rigorous, intense inquiry and analysis. So the university, through its work every day, expresses the view that clarity derives from the clash of ideas and the willingness to accept answers only when they meet the tests of argument. We believe that the best education and the most empowering education take place in the environment of constant challenge that is implicit in a culture of rigorous inquiry, and that this culture is responsible for producing ideas of power and importance to humankind. This focus on rigorous inquiry has defined the University of Chicago, its research and its education at all levels since its inception, and it continues to do so today. Now, what does a culture of inquiry really mean? It's useful to illustrate this with an example. So as the word inquiry itself implies, let's begin with a question. Namely, what are you doing when you are engaged in discussion? What is the point of argument? Now, if you're like many people, the point is to convince the other person that they have it all wrong and that you have it all right. Now, I will confess to having engaged occasionally in such argument myself. And I'm confident that such is the case for everyone sitting here in Rockefeller Chapel. However, for our work at the university, that is not really the point of discussion or argument. That point, the point of discussion or argument and work at the University of Chicago, is to take the issue in question and explore arguments from all perspectives. Which arguments are valid under which circumstances, which stand scrutiny, what are their power and what are their limitations, and how they relate, how they comport with various data, and so on. The goal is greater clarity about arguments from all perspectives on the issue. Embedded in this approach is the understanding that most often all arguments do not point in the same direction, and a given argument's power and limitations must be understood simultaneously. Problems are complex. There are systemic interactions. Single actions have both benefits and undesirable consequences. Seemingly simple assertions can have complex implications. Arguments apply with more power in some circumstances than in others in which they are more limited. New data can always emerge and must be sought. The more that one argues and discusses, the more data that are brought to bear, related questions raised and analyzed, and perspectives are incorporated in the analysis, then the fabric of understanding becomes richer and the approach to the problem becomes more nuanced. In our culture of inquiry, understanding becomes complex, expandable, and fluid rather than simple and rigid. I want to emphasize that this approach is not at all equivalent to saying all arguments have merit. In fact, quite the opposite is true. This approach asserts that all arguments, no matter how comfortable they may feel to you, require scrutiny, and quite explicitly recognizes the difficulty of establishing merit in arguments. Another feature of the intellectual environment in Chicago is that problems are taken on their own terms. So by this, I mean that many problems do not present themselves neatly along the lines of traditional and important academic disciplines. This is not to devalue the disciplines. On the contrary, the disciplines provide important, developed modes of inquiry that have great explanatory power. However, they also have limitations. And for many important questions, one must understand and bring to bear the depth of perspective of several disciplines. This intellectual porosity and multidisciplinary engagement are other key aspects of the University of Chicago all emanating directly from the integrity of our approach to inquiry. Intellectual porosity also has a significant impact on what it feels like to be a member of the University of Chicago community. As a mathematics faculty member for many years, I was always aware of being part of a larger institution with a commitment to inquiry and a corresponding sense of its own mission. The University of Chicago never feels like an intellectual holding company for disparate disciplines. It has a sense of wholeness and unity of purpose that is very distinctive, and I'm confident that you will come to share this sense of the university. Now, in order for you to most benefit from and best contribute to this environment, you must develop the skills and approach of holding competing perspectives in your mind simultaneously, listening to arguments of others, and both understanding and challenging them. At the same time, you must challenge your own assumptions, and this is often, in fact, sometimes always, the hardest part, while ultimately still forging your own synthesis. It is this level of thought and analysis that leaves the simple who is right and who is wrong far behind. And in the same vein, you will not find at the University of Chicago an environment of easy and comfortable belief in the latest politically correct view of the world. What you will discover is a community that finds intense, rigorous engagement tremendously exciting, enjoyable, challenging, empowering, and gratifying, and with a great sense of community and commonality around this distinctive experience. Entering this community, meeting so many new people, and engaging new challenges as you now are, is exciting, but it can also be sometimes a bit intimidating. You'll find yourself needing to take some risks, engaging in conversation and debate, and being open-minded to what others are saying. You'll learn a great deal from your early engagements, from your fellow students, from the faculty, and you will likewise contribute a great deal. It may not all come together immediately or easily, but this exploration and experimentation will be part of your learning process, and you will soon find your very firm footing and discover that you can, in fact, do all of this very, very well. I want to return to one word that I just used, namely empowering, and briefly discuss another question. Why exactly is education at the University of Chicago so empowering, as so many of our students, ultimately turned alumni, have found for generations? So to begin to answer this, let's look a bit at the difference between action and analysis. So action, of course, has an either-or quality. You either do something or you don't do it. Taking action can lead to intended benefits and a desired end, but sometimes to undesirable consequences as well. So what is the best approach to taking such action? With a simple and comfortable belief that one is right and is all for the best, or with a habit of mind to realize that in many cases, all the arguments for a particular action are not on one side, and that one can understand and anticipate the full context and consequences of an act, the downside as well as the upside. What the analytic culture of inquiry at Chicago provides is a lifelong set of skills and approach to the world that eschews simplicity and comfort in favor of analysis, inquiry, and the recognition of complexity. It empowers appropriate action because it strives to understand an action's full implications. In fostering the habit of questioning, it simultaneously fosters imagination and creativity of action. It is this approach that has empowered so many of our students over the years and provided the environment for our faculty research. It is what has empowered our faculty and alumni to challenge conventional wisdom, to find new disciplines, make imaginative and creative contributions to almost every domain of human endeavor, to assume leadership positions throughout the world and in fact change the world. And it will do all of this for you as well. Now, diversity has a very particular role and history at the University of Chicago. The questions, the nature of questions being asked and the perspectives being expressed are very naturally often a function of the experiences and outlook of those participating. So diversity for the university is therefore particularly germane to our core mission. So we must ensure that our scholarly and educational community is comprised of a rich mix of individuals who, through their own distinctive viewpoints, contribute to the intellectually challenging culture of inquiry at the university. And our history reflects this openness. The university has, unlike many of our peer institutions, always been open to women as well as men. The first doctorate earned by a black woman in the United States was awarded in 1921 at the University of Chicago. We were among the first major non-historically black universities to tenure a black faculty member. Contributions by Asian American scholars in the 1920s were essential to the university's landmark research in urban sociology. At a time when other elite institutions systematically discriminated against Jews, the University of Chicago refused to set quotas. We have long been a magnet for students from Mexico and South America. Throughout its history, the university has acted, not just talked, but acted on the belief that the capacity to contribute was not limited to some specific groups, and very importantly, in addition, that the richness of the community directly contributed to the richness of the intellectual environment. One recent manifestation of this perspective of openness is our Odyssey program, which eliminates or significantly reduces loan requirements for students from families with modest incomes. This program began with the class of 2012, benefits about 20% of the students in your class, the class of 2017, and our goal is to ensure that we remain accessible and attractive to outstanding talented students from low and moderate income families, and that these students have the capacity to take full advantage of their time at the University of Chicago. The Odyssey program was initiated on the basis of an anonymous $100 million gift from a college alumnus who recognized that openness and access represented the highest values of the university, and that it was important that the distinctive education offered at the University of Chicago be fully available to those who could most benefit from and contribute to our environment. Now, the Odyssey program actually highlights another feature of your place in the University of Chicago community. The university that you enter has been built by many persons over more than a century. Every generation and thousands of individuals have made contributions to its strength, culture, achievements, and vitality. Each of us at the university today, faculty, students, administrators, and staff, every one of us are the beneficiaries of those who came before us, who gave to the university through their work, their commitment, their financial contributions, and their advocacy. It is this legacy that we all inherit together, and it is this legacy on which we will all build together. You will contribute to this legacy through your own work in the next 4 years in the college, and through your continued engagement with the university after you graduate. You are becoming, starting today, part of the continuum of the history of the University of Chicago. Now, I have focused a great deal on the culture of inquiry at the university because this is, to my mind, the defining feature of the university and the educational experience of all its students, but it is not the only feature of the university. Your analytic work will not exist in a vacuum, nor does the university exist in a vacuum. The university presents a myriad of opportunities to situate your work in a larger set of activities, to pursue your interests, whether they be connected to the arts, social engagement, fitness, athletics, or more. And likewise, we're fortunate to live in a truly extraordinary city with enormous opportunities. We're residents of the South Side of Chicago, a community of which the university is a committed citizen and a proud member. All of the opportunities presented on the campus and in the city can contribute to and dramatically enrich the nature of your total experience at the university, and I urge you to explore many of these avenues. So this is something about the university, and now what about you, our students entering the college this fall? So you have come from all over the world with a wide variety of backgrounds, interests, and perhaps a wide variety of ambitions. Most importantly, you've convinced us that you are exactly the right students who can most contribute to and most benefit from the culture that I've described. You've convinced us by the work you've done, the presentation that you have made of your abilities, interests, and outlook, the recommendations of those who know you, and your demonstrated commitment that you will be wonderful and full members of the University of Chicago community and all that that entails. This community is comprised of your fellow students in the college and beyond the college, the university's faculty, administrators, and staff, our alumni, our committed friends, and those who have been here before as faculty and administrators, and soon enough, believe it or not, it will include those who will come after you. It is a community of enormous energy, excitement, challenge, and enjoyment in ongoing mutual learning. And while you are, of course, focused on the next 4 years, you're entering a community that we hope you will be actively part of 4 years beyond that. Before closing, I want to say a few words to the parents who are here. Having been through this myself 3 times, I know that sending one's children off to college is not a simple act. It's exciting, although a bit anxiety-provoking. It's an act of significant financial commitment. It's also an act of trust. Trust in your children, that they will take advantage of the extraordinary opportunities that college affords them. Trust in yourselves, that you've done your job to this point as parents and can watch and hopefully enjoy your children's growth in the next phase of life. And of course, trust in the university that they attend. You are entrusting us at the University of Chicago with the education of your children, now our students. And I know that for most of you, there is nothing more important. And likewise for us at the University of Chicago, I want to tell you there is nothing more important. So, to new students and parents alike, welcome to the University of Chicago. It is, for all the reasons I've described, a university like no other, where you will have an education like no other. You are now part of this extraordinary and distinctive community with its remarkable legacy and its remarkable future. It will be a great adventure. Enjoy it.
My name is John Boyer. I'm the Dean of the college, and I'd like to offer you some thoughts about the college to which you've come and the city in which you're going to be living for the next 4 years. Let me begin by welcoming not only the friends and family and students who are present in the chapel this afternoon, but also a very warm welcome to the parents and students and friends who are viewing us today from Idenoise Hall and from Harper Library, 2 great neo-Gothic buildings that are part of the ambient architectural culture of the university. Shaler Matthews, an early faculty member at the Divinity School, tells the story in his autobiography of arriving at the university on opening day in 1894, when most of what is now the campus was what he called an unredeemed prairie. The place was disorganized. Many of our magnificent buildings were unfinished or not yet built. But Matthews recalled that none of this mattered, at least it didn't matter to him, since, quote, the air was charged with enthusiasm and hope. Opening day is a time for hope and enthusiasm, for pride. And on such days as this one really does understand the power and the responsibility of these extraordinary communities that we call universities. Now, I can imagine that many of you students especially, are anxious both about the place to which you've come and about your fate here over the next several years. About the second issue, your personal futures, I want to reassure you, you would not be here today if we were not confident that you will be very successful in the college. Now, of course, some of us, I include myself, need to worry a bit or a lot, perhaps as an edge so you can perform at 120%. And if you're like that, then you should feel free to continue to worry. Worry a lot. Actually, you shouldn't do that. But you really should believe and understand that you are going to flourish. So you should relax. You should enjoy this week and know that, to paraphrase Heraclitus, your character already defines your destiny. At the same time, I would be remiss if I did not add to these encouraging words a further qualification. Cardinal John Henry Newman, the great 19th century English educator and churchman, had occasion to give a talk to entering students at the new Catholic University in Dublin in 1858. And Newman spoke at an orientation meeting, an assembly much like the present one. Newman urged his students to understand that the basic purpose of a university and university education was to open new intellectual horizons and to nurture new habits and skills of thought. But he also wanted his students to remember that, as he put it, quote, "It is not the place that makes the man, but the man that makes the place," unquote. Newman's point was, in my view, useful. In coming to this very special place, you will gain the chance to learn the skills of a scholar, how to cultivate knowledge for its own sake, how to fashion intelligent questions, how to form and defend sound opinions, while also faithfully seeking to understand the opinions of others. But in doing all of this, you will not only gain full citizenship in our community, you will help to reinforce and recreate the fundamental identity of our university as a particularly rational and intellectual place. And this means that, as Newman put it, our place needs you as much as you need it. In joining this particular community, you become a member of one of the world's great universities, not only because of the scholarly ancestors that you can now claim, or because of the distinguished women and men who will be your teachers, but also because you yourselves will add to the great reservoir of talent, interest, and commitment that is at the core of any serious university. Universities are among the oldest institutions of our culture and our civilization. They date from the 12th century in Europe, where students and teachers gathered in what were called cathedral schools to pursue common interest in learning, with new matriculants seeking out and getting to know, as a late medieval Manuale Scholarium put it in 1481, and getting to know professors and more senior students who were, quote, good and keen and have individual ideas, unquote. Over the course of the centuries, universities in Europe and America and elsewhere in the world have been sources of great social and cultural continuity, but also radical intellectual and scientific change. Our university emerged from such a conjuncture of continuity and change, and its history reveals a remarkable interweaving of competing ideals. Chicago was one of the first modern research universities in America, which meant that it was an institution devoted to a professional scientific culture and to the rigorous, competitive, and meritocratic standards of the new national scholarly community that emerged in the United States at the end of the 19th century. But if it was a new university for scientific purposes, it was created in 1890 from the ruins of a failed Baptist college founded in the 1850s, and the men and women who refounded the university were profoundly dedicated to a rigorous teaching mission and to a program of public enlightenment for the citizens of the city of Chicago. Our founding president, William Rainey Harper, conceived of a university that would include an undergraduate college, open equally, as Bob Zimmer has mentioned, to women and men, a preparatory school for that, our college, our laboratory school, an extension division for adult education, a university press that would publish both scholarly books and learned journals, and a graduate school model on the great research universities of Germany. He staffed it with a faculty of 120 eminent scholars, almost half of whom had studied at various German universities. Harper thought of our community as being one university, and that all associated with it would be devoted to intellectual excellence and to the cultivation of practical reason in our collective and individual lives. From its founding, Chicago was unique, for it was a place without crippling boundaries. Of course, the university came to have organizational units, departments, and other units. It even had a territory defined by street grids in the city of Chicago. But in fact, these were all to be rather secondary, for the original impulse of the university was to constitute a community of research and teaching in which all members, including the youngest students like you, shared common values committed to the passions of reason. Harper's driving ambition was to create a research university in which collegiate education would be integrated with the work of scholarship and research. He not only wanted an institution doing what he called real university work and infused with what he called the university spirit, by which he meant that it should be a place fiercely devoted to the generation of new knowledge, but he believed that undergraduates should share fully in the deliberations of that spirit, and that they should use their educations then to transform and improve public welfare. Research was salutary not only as a way to advance knowledge, but as a way of publicly demonstrating the creativity of the faculty and of mobilizing the university to enrich society. Harper saw our university as a sacred place, and that in searching for truth we joined with the spirit of a beneficent providence. But he also viewed our community as an engine to do good in the world. He believed that America needed democratic prophets who would proclaim its righteousness, democratic priests who would ensure its collective cooperation and loyalty, and democratic philosophers who would help guide the nation's political and social self-understandings. The modern university was well fitted to play all three of these roles via its commitment to truth-telling, its dedication to reasoned dialogue, and its ethos of disciplined inquiry. The outside world was duly impressed with Harper's vision. A prominent Harvard dean, the dean of the Harvard Law School, Roscoe Pound, soon commented that Chicago was, quote, the coming institution of the land. It was founded at the right time to have great ideas, which are yet modern ideas. It has a tradition of scholarship, and at the same time has put the social sciences and the natural sciences where they ought to be in an American university, end quote. Now, these foundational values, these wonderful foundational values, were further elaborated, but also, I would argue, seriously modified in the 1930s and 40s in a second great moment in the university's history. In contrast to the optimism and self-confidence of Harper's Gilded Age, the faculty now faced a world marked by economic and social crisis, by the fear of giant isms, socialism, communism, collectivism, fascism, totalitarianism, and by a profound need to defend individual autonomy and freedom against ideological bias and inherited prejudice. In the midst of the Great Depression in 1931, a group of colleagues at Chicago revolutionized the world of higher education by creating Chicago's first core curriculum. Officially designated as the New Plan, this curriculum was a bold attempt to synthesize broad fields of knowledge in an explicitly interdisciplinary framework of general education for first and second year students in the college. But this core was more than simply a curriculum. It was a sign of new times, born in an historic moment of profound but fruitful crisis. It was the true progeny of a great university because it assumed that scholarly professionalism should inform the teaching of general education. But it also assumed that students should begin with general rather than specialized knowledge, and that the first 2 years of college, should be devoted to very different conceptual and developmental purposes than the second 2 years. If the university embraced the dream of scientific research, scientific modernism as a fundamental mission in the 1890s, it now more fully and completely understood the value of general education in the liberal arts as a second correlative mission in the 1930s. Rather than training fixed persons for fixed duties with incantations of past dogmas, however pleasing and romantic, the founders of the core in the 30s believed that it was the obligation of the modern university to educate flexible minds who would welcome intellectual exploration and intellectual complexity and see through the allures and the temptations of the rigid doctrinal systems that were awash in the world of the 1930s. In challenging our youngest students to engage large areas of human knowledge and discovery at a high level at the very beginning of their careers, at the very beginning of your careers. The general education courses of the 30s contributed mightily to that culture of intellectual seriousness with which we have endowed the whole of our college and indeed the whole of our university. The New Plan was our first core curriculum, and our current curriculum, the curriculum that you will engage, owes much to the spirit and practices of that original plan. In our time, also a moment of great social and economic upheaval, the skills and scholarly habits instilled by the core are essential in new ways. Similar to those who espoused the Gilded Age optimism and progressivism of Harper's era in the 1890s, and to those who felt themselves assaulted by the easy ideological solutions of the 1930s and 40s, we find ourselves entangled within an equally fascinating historical era of massive and ever-accelerating social change. Our era is defined by the rapid worldwide movement of peoples, ideas, and economic forces, by the weakening of traditional social loyalties and political identities, and by the proliferation of purely technical and disciplinary knowledge on the one hand, and the oppressive dominion of mass marketing logics on the other. These forces can all too easily discourage and even defeat the human capacity to live one's life or to govern one's community in a manner that is measured, thoughtful, and ethical, but also responsive to the global forces at play in our lives every day. In this historical moment, we remain committed to the educational practices of the core and throughout our curriculum, which confront the turbulence of our age with the skills that make intellectual engagement with uncertainty possible, and that cultivate in our students and our faculty a love of learning and a willingness to think as rigorously and as flexibly as our age demands. You should understand that a curriculum is more than a set of formal prescriptions and requirements. It is, in fact, a statement. It's a fundamental statement of the basic values of a university. It's a statement of the ways in which the faculty is forced to decide what is important and what is not important, the education of our students. But the core and the other elements of our curriculum only work in our university because of the extraordinarily gifted students we have who help to make them work. And from the outset, the university attracted a very remarkable group of students indeed. As early as 1902, Harper observed that inability to organize work, excuse me, in skill of adaptation, of means to end, and determination of purpose to win, and readiness to make sacrifice for the sake of intellectual advancement. No body of students ever gathered together in this country or in any other country has ever shown itself superior to the student body of the University of Chicago. And what is most characteristic about Chicago, I believe, is that the academic culture of our undergraduate students and the academic culture of our faculty substantially overlap, both based on a bracing commitment to merit and to achievement. This is a rare and a special circumstance, one that is actually the envy of colleagues at other universities. Like the great cosmopolitan cities of the 19th century, the great universities of the 21st century are what the distinguished German philosopher Jürgen Habermas has called publics of private people. They are institutions of specific national cultures, often located in great cities. But they are also inherently cosmopolitan. The great research universities are among the most constructive institutions that we have for defending the cultural values that sustain a civilized world order. Not only do our best universities train the young to engage in responsible citizenship, but by defending a culture of academic freedom, they guarantee access to scientific experimentation, intellectual tolerance, and a respect for conflicting ideas, and I think even more importantly, conflicting values. They have far surpassed the possibilities of the older 19th century models on which we were founded, and ironically, in our case, the University of Chicago has brought those earlier models to a stunning level of fulfillment and completeness. Some years ago, Richard von Weizsäcker, who was then the president of the Federal Republic of Germany, spent a day on our campus touring the buildings and meeting with faculty and students. And at the end of the day, I asked him, Mr. President, what are your impressions of the University of Chicago? Weizsäcker paused, pondered the question for a while, and then with a slight gleam in his eye, he quipped, well, I'm truly delighted that after all these years, I've finally seen a real German research university. Now, having welcomed you to our college, let me now welcome you to our local context, the city of Chicago. It is no accident that great universities and great cities often coexist. And in coming to Chicago in the year 2013, you will experience what generations of past students have experienced at this great university set in a great city, creative and demanding intellectual citizenship in a local institution, but with very broad and universal horizons. Our students, both women and men, and of all ethnicities and religious confessions, came and come from a broad spectrum of social backgrounds, and once here, it is not, I think, surprising that they have fostered deeply personal connections to the wider urban fabric of the city of Chicago. The diversity of cultural perspectives, the plurality of social views, and the rich fabric of cultural and artistic opportunities provided by the great metropolis of Chicago itself have been crucial over the past century in enhancing our capacity to assemble, to sustain, and to empower such a diverse student body with what I would call a highly pragmatic outlook on life, The tensions between integration and diversity, between homogeneity and pluralism that filled the debates about globalization find no better living example than the history of this great city. From the beginning, Chicago was a destination for immigrants of the modern world. As late as 1890, first and second generation Germans constituted almost a third of the population of the city, and in many neighborhoods of Chicago, their language, and not English, was the principal language of commerce and communication. Upon their heels came the Irish, the Poles, the Lithuanians, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Czechs, the Italians, the Russians, the Greeks, and many others. And during the Great Migration between 1910 and 1970, hundreds of thousands of African Americans journeyed from the American South to become citizens of this great city. And after the Second World War, Chicago welcomed still growing Indian, Filipino, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese communities. And the last 50 years has seen the emergence of a huge Latino community of peoples from Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. And even today, the city assembles upon itself, year in, year out, a vast array of individuals and families from all around the world. Chicago began as a frontier trading post in the 1830s, but by 1900 it had become a global crossroads, the fifth largest city in the world. And the history of this university reflects that development. The enormous population growth of Chicago in the late 19th century was accompanied by an assemblage of great wealth, and after 1880 by the emergence of civic and economic elites who were determined to provide the city with cultural institutions appropriate to a world city. This American progressive faith in science and this conviction that the organization of knowledge might guarantee progress in society made civic leaders equally interested in higher education. And the founding of your university is thus an integral part of those decades in the 19th century when the civic leaders of Chicago, who had attained a critical mass of self-confidence and self-esteem necessary to associate public virtue with the fortuitous combination of scientific knowledge and philanthropic wealth. And this is important because the founding of this university was a very unusual thing. It was dedicated to the project of modern science. And many people back then didn't really understand what science was, but the civic leaders of Chicago did, and they had faith in Harper and the early faculty to accomplish this extraordinary achievement of founding a university dedicated to scientific knowledge using their philanthropic wealth. Your university thus owes much of its character, its basic character, and its financial support to your new hometown. Chicago is it's an amazing city with a history that has both defined and often defied its own fate, a city that is a metaphor for American civilization in the 20th century. It is not simply that this is a city with a rich and colorful political history that detests losers. It really does detest losers, by the way. And that, as one local political wag once put it to a would-be reformer, it doesn't want nobody that nobody sent. It's also a city whose confluence of cultures and ethnicities, languages, and religious values, sited far from the distractions or the illusions of either ocean coast on the boundary line of the great American West, has given the city a personality of its own. Great resilience and determination, pragmatic impatience with what was accomplished yesterday, and yet a tolerance for diversity and for difference. Many years ago, Nelson Algren, the famous Chicago novelist, called Chicago a, quote, big shot town, a small shot town, a jet-propelled old-fashioned town built by old world hands with new world tools. And even today, to see the many stunning and luminous skyscrapers of the central city at dusk along the shores of Lake Michigan is to know that those hands and those tools built a city like no other in our time. Finally, a word of greeting and congratulations to the parents present in the chapel this afternoon, or also in Ida Noyes and in Harper Library. My wife, Barbara, and I have seen 3 children through college, and we've experienced the joy that comes to all parents to see their children mature, graduate, pay your library fines, empty your dorm rooms, and graduate. Uwe Oma, the contemporary photographer, is the author of the wonderful book called The Family Album of the Planet Earth, has observed about his encounters with thousands of contemporary families around the world that, quote, I learned there is one thing in every single family of the world, the hope of parents to be able to give their children a better education than what they had for themselves. Realistically, of course, none of us can give our children education. Only they can do this, but you have made it possible for your children to give themselves the very best education, and for that, we congratulate you. The process of going to college is a complicated one for all of us. We do our best to advise our high school seniors about the selection of colleges, and then we live through those very anxiety-filled months filled with, I guess, what used to be thick envelopes. I guess now they're thick email attachments that our colleagues in admissions send out to the very select few, the very virtuous few, that's you. And at the end of this complex human journey, we end up sitting in a beautiful neo-Gothic cathedral or a beautiful neo-Gothic building, much like that experienced by the students of the 12th century European cathedral schools. And we end up here saying goodbye. On such an occasion, parents are filled with enormous pride, and yet with a sadness about the passing of generations and the passing of time. Time is a cunning and an inescapable thing. It has its own reasons, it has its own logic, and it brings changes that often enrich and yet never fail to complicate our lives. That your daughters and sons are here today is their doing, for it was they who worked hard in high school, it was they who used their talents in ways that merited them the opportunity to become members of one of the great universities in the world. Your children will certainly flourish in the college, and I have no doubt that 3 years and 9 months from now, President Zimmer and I will see all of you back on the quadrangles full of admiration for your daughters and sons' accomplishments and success, and having even greater love, if that's possible, for their generosity and their humanity. But they would not be here today without your help, without your encouragement, without your financial sacrifices, and above all else, without your love. And so as the dorm rooms are put in order and as the time comes to say goodbye, but of course only goodbye until family weekend in October, I'm sure that I speak for all of our students, as I also speak for myself and my faculty colleagues, when I tell you that we are enormously grateful. We are enormously grateful for your conviction that education matters and that it is extremely valuable not only to the lives of our children, but also to the life of our nation. Now it is our venerable custom that we must divide. After the Motet choir sings the alma mater, I ask the students of the class of 2017 and the transfer students of 2013 to proceed to your class photograph, after which you will return to your residence halls and have a splendid dinner with your fellow classmates. And it gives me a very special pleasure to invite the parents and other relatives and friends of the class of 2013 to join President Zimmer and other members of the college alumni, faculty, and administration for a reception in the Hutchinson courtyard. May we all have an exciting and stimulating year. May we all have a year filled, as our medieval ancestor wrote in 1481, with good and keen teachers and ideas, and with a rich treasury of individual ideas. Thank you very much, and Godspeed to all of you.
As the recessional music begins, I invite those of you here in the chapel to remain seated until the banners have been led down the aisle, and those of us here have followed them down. If you'd like to come and get your banners, those of you who are in the other buildings will be led to join the grand procession.